Rugby World Rankings are locked in for 2025, folks. Who are the biggest winners and losers of the 2025 season ahead of the World Cup draw, which is, remember, the kind of one time, is it the only time, when Rugby World Rankings actually have a very practical application. The rankings will see the teams get seeded into their groups, like in groups of 6. So the top 6 teams will be your top seeds, then 7 through 12, and so on. So who are the biggest losers and the winners of the year? And we'll look forward to the draw, I think, on Wednesday. Our biggest winner, easily, it's an easy call, is England. England started the year outside of the top 6, so they would have been a second seed come Rugby World Cup draw time. But they went up a whopping 4 spots with this magnificent winning run that they have been on, and gone up 7.1 in terms of their points on the log. Standout performers of 2025 by a mile, because they've gone from, as I said, being a second seed to the third best side in the world based on the world rankings. Like right now, a matchup between England and South Africa is looking mighty tasty. South Africa is still ahead of everyone else. Like there's a big gap between the box and everyone else. As I said, as Russie even noticed, and he's starting to follow the world rankings as well. Like they could have lost, I think, by, no matter what total against Wales, they could have lost by 100 against Wales, and they still would have remained number 1 in the world. That's how far ahead they are of everyone else. But England's rise has been massive. 7th to 3rd, second seed at the World Cup to, as I said, one of the top seeds and the third best side in the world. Far and away standout performer of 2025. Remember, they went to Argentina with I don't want to say a B team, but without any Lions. So to get results over in Argentina without any Lions is a cracking one for them. Other winners, you got to say South Africa. You finished number 1 at the world. Extend that lead, and you do need to remember it's harder to get points. I've mentioned it many times. It's harder to get points when you're above everybody else. There's a cutoff of about 10 points. It depends on home and away and whatnot. But once you get too far ahead of everyone else, you can't take points from them. Or if you're far away enough, but close enough to take points, but you're still quite far ahead, you take fewer points. So like they thrashed Wales 73-0, get 0 from it in world rankings terms. That's just the way the rankings work. It happens anytime a team miles ahead plays a team miles behind. And the further South Africa extend their lead, the harder it is going to be to get points. It also means you're vulnerable to dropping a lot of points when you do lose. Like the Ellis Park loss cost them a lot of points because they lost to a lower ranked side, quite significantly lower ranked, and at home. So it's the fact that they still end the season 1.16 ahead of where they started the season. Well, that's a lot of points to get back, but they got them and then some. So finished the season pretty well. And then these guys, Fiji played how many games at home? 2. Fiji don't get home yet. They played Scotland and they played Tonga in the Pacific Nations Cup. Fiji they spend their entire season now on neutral or on the road, basically. They still went up a point. They moved up 1 spot in the world rankings. You'd love to see, I think Fiji are fairly happy to play on the road economically, but Fiji's a hard place to go, and their crowds are amazing. Like if you see Super Rugby, the Fijian and Drua, their home record is incredible. It's a fortress. Away is not so flash. But I think you'd be surprised how many teams would struggle with the conditions in Fiji if they had to have like a 3-match tour of Fiji. But we don't really get matches in Fiji. But Fiji deserve a shout out for the points they have gained. Who are the biggest losers? Well, sadly for you guys, it's the Scots. Scots dropped because they started the year in those top 6 spots. They were a contender for being a top seed at the next World Cup. And they had the fixtures to kind of ensure that they would remain there. Like they had an away game in Fiji. Admittedly without their Lions. Like Scotland had more Lions in this most recent tour than Scotland teams usually get because it's a strong Scottish side. But they had a chance to go to Fiji and get away points over a team who were there or thereabouts. Fiji were what, like 8th at the time? Scotland was 6th or maybe 7th. But they lost that one. They had a chance. Argentina at home. Argentina also 6th at the time. Scotland had them at home. Scotland had them down 21-0, which would have meant potential for Scotland to get back into the top 6, but then the Argentinians had a massive comeback. So Scotland dropped 3 positions. They go from 6th to 9th. They drop 3.12 points. It's the biggest drop of like the top 10 sides. So unfortunate one for the Scots. Another team on the drop is the Irish. Now we've got to remember it's a Lions disrupted season for them. Didn't seem to bother England, but Scotland and Ireland, it didn't help. Obviously, it hurts Ireland more, the fact that Andy Farrell wasn't there for the Six Nations for Ireland, so it's disruptive. But Ireland have lost almost 3 points, 2.81. With that Lions tour not helping, you know, those key games towards the end of the year against the All Blacks, against South Africa, the ones they didn't win. So there's big question marks about Ireland at the moment for Ireland come the start of the Six Nations 2026. Although I still remember my dad saying to me that, like, you know, this Ireland side hasn't become a bad side overnight. So we can be a bit reactionary. November obviously wouldn't have felt that flash from an Irish perspective. They started the year 2nd and finished 4th in the world. There are questions to be answered in 2026, but yeah, Andy Farrell's a good coach. They got some good players. We'll see if they can work out a solution. And then there's also France. Now, France, like, they lose 1.27 on the world rankings. You feel like that the home loss to the Box, that had to burn, especially when the Box had a red card for as long as they did. But as I said, right now, getting beaten by the Box, there's no real shame in it. They did it in Wellington. They did it in Dublin. They did it to the French. Like, they've been doing it a lot this year. The fact that there was the red card maybe makes it burn a bit more. Antoine Dupont's coming back from injury. That's a bit of good news. But also, they toured New Zealand with their, you know, limited side that they could field. You know, a lot of those guys not available due to club commitments and whatnot meant they went on a 3-match losing run in New Zealand, which meant they surrendered world rankings points. There was a slight possibility towards those end of those November matches that if they'd got a hiding by the Aussies, that they would have slipped outside the top 6, but they won that one. So they remain a top 6 side who are kind of hard to gauge on the world rankings because, as I said, the July team tends to look a bit different from a full strength, like Six Nations French side. Who are the teams that were kind of neutral? Because you'd be thinking, surely the Aussies, with their terrible run towards the end of the year, surely they're one of the losers on the world rankings. Not really. I mean, they were in a position to challenge for the top 6. I think they have been in the top 6 at times during this year. But they finish this year on a gain of 0.01. So they have had a tiny points gain. And the fact that the Scots have dropped has been in their benefit. But they're almost points neutral for this year. That Ellis Park win netted them a heap of points, which they've then been kind of slowly bleeding away. The Italy loss is obviously a pretty tough one for them. The All Blacks are also a pretty neutral one. They've actually gone up on the rankings. They finished the year in 2nd, whereas they started in 3rd. But they've actually dropped points this year compared to gaining them. The All Blacks are down 0.03. So kind of like the Aussies, pretty much at points neutral for this year. But the Irish have dropped below them. So it's more about other sides moving around that sees the change for the All Blacks. It's been a pretty much a down the middle season in terms of the points. Argentina literally finished the year on the same points that they started. That's quite incredible. 84.97. Literally no change. They've changed throughout the season, but they've finished how they started. Although they have dropped a spot into 6th with England surging ahead in front of them. But yeah, these 3 rugby championship sides have had virtually no change in their points totals for 2025. Italy have had a bit of a kind of marginal gain, better than the other 3 sides, that's for sure. Their performances in the Six Nations have been pleasing. The Welsh, believe it or not, biggest result for them was the win over Japan, which saw them get out of the 3rd tier for the World Cup draw because they finished the season 11th. They're actually up slightly. So, yeah, it actually doesn't seem too bad in world rankings terms, despite just getting hammered 73-0. Yeah, it's actually not that bad in terms of the world ranking. So read into that what you will. Other sides who were the big movers, like Samoa, had a massive drop. They had a terrible year. They just qualified for the World Cup by the skin of their teeth, Samoa. But they've like dropped 5 spots and 6 points. They've had a pretty terrible run. I think Chile's done all right. But I mean, a lot of these countries are basically pretty happy to have qualified for the World Cup. Yeah, the likes of Zimbabwe qualified for the World Cup. Hong Kong have qualified for the World Cup. So these are kind of good news stories. Belgium came so close. So I'm more concerned about that, I would imagine, than world rankings. World rankings are an interesting one. Some people love them. Like I really like reading them and seeing how the teams have changed and what the possible permutations are. But like in recent days, I've been thinking a lot about all the rugby conversations I had with my dad. I don't ever remember having a world rankings conversation with my dad. Certainly not in any detail. If we did, he was never talking about, oh man, the Boks are ahead of us by 1.27. Never. Did not. I don't want to say didn't care. I don't think he was too fussed about the world rankings. He'd much rather be watching the games and kind of getting his gut feel about who's a good team and who's a good player, rather than the minutiae of like what are the permutations in rugby world rankings. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But yeah, World Cup draw is on Wednesday, I think. That'll be really fascinating. I should have mentioned Georgia. Georgia dropping out of the top 12 is a brutal one for them because that means they're a 3rd seed at the next World Cup. But yeah, they lost that crucial game against Japan at the end of the season. Anyway, you guys let us know your thoughts. Who are your biggest winners? For me, it has to be England, with South Africa and Fiji not too far behind. The Scots had a chance to finish top 6, couldn't get it done. Subscribe to the channel, guys, if you haven't done so already. Take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.